Welcome to Crime Most French, a weekly podcast taking you through intriguing cases carried out on French soil. Researched and narrated by Cedric and rudely interrupted by me, Melanie. We're the true crime podcast All the Lions. Crack open le vin and let the mayhem commence.
This is episode 38 of our podcast. It's nearly an anniversary episode. We released the first episode a year ago on the 18th of May.
Really?
So in 3 days' time, it was a year ago. This week's episode is the Bonnot Copycats. We covered the Bonnot in episode 5. There were gangsters in Paris attacking people moving money around. Remember, they were moving bags of money in the streets, unprotected or just a bodyguard. And
yes.
They made a specialty of attacking those people.
Mm-hmm.
But also a few banks, and they ended up being cornered into a house, and the army was called in with cannons and stuff to get rid of the house and the people in it, which they did.
Yes.
So that was that story.
It went very Butch and Sundance.
It did, yes. Yeah. And this week's gang essentially got inspiration from them and decided to try to do the same thing.
Right.
On the 11th of July 1925, which was a Saturday, in Talence, which is near Bordeaux.
Okay.
Near the end of the day, the 500 or so employees at a furniture making company called Arribé are getting ready to finish their shift and start the weekend. Because it's 1925, the work week was still 6 days. It's only after 1936 that it became 5 days.
Savage.
Yeah. All are waiting for Monsieur Lafitte, the cash manager, who went to the bank to withdraw about 125,000 francs, which is probably something like $1.25 million or so euro in today's money, from the company account to pay the weekly salaries. They were paid weekly.
Oh yeah, that's right. You get your envelope with your money in it at the end of the week. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So it was the same in Aberdeen when we were paid on Thursdays.
Right. I don't think I was ever there at that point.
No. It was a long time ago.
Yes.
But lots of things were still happening on Thursdays because it was payday in Aberdeen.
I see.
People working on rigs and stuff used to be paid on the Thursday. So you had promotions in bars and stuff on Thursdays.
Of
And
course.
I was explained all that once. I was asking, why is everything on Thursday? And shops could stay open longer on Thursdays. And that was all because they were paid on the Thursday.
Oh, I see.
Here they were paid on the Saturday.
So bank transfers not available at the time. So here we have to go for the...
Yeah, most people didn't have a bank account in the 20s.
No, of course not.
So, and that was the routine every week.
Mm-hmm.
So every Saturday, same routine, same dude, went to the same bank, get the same money,
Right.
and paid the employees. Suddenly, 3 individuals enter the offices of the company,
Okay.
and they start firing straight away. No warnings, no orders to hand over money. Just they get in and shoot, and they're shooting to kill, according to witnesses. They're not shooting in the air; they're shooting at people.
Seems slightly crazy.
It feels like they're jumping the gun a little bit.
Yes.
But
It feels
fun,
like...
but they're skipping a few steps. Yes.
it feels like we've come in the middle.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's what witnesses said. They just came in and started shooting at us. They didn't ask anything. They didn't say anything. They just started shooting.
And this feels like the second robbery of the day.
Yeah, yes. They want to get over. They want to start the weekend. So
Yes.
let's get it out of the way. Yeah, essentially, yes. So the 5 employees present in the office are Mr. and Mrs. Gimont, their son Roger, his wife, and Mrs. Marguerite.
So very much a family affair within that office then.
Yeah, I don't think they had anything to do with the owner of the company, but yeah, I think the office was run by a family essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Roger is badly wounded straight away. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he will die later in hospital. His father is also wounded, but will make it. As this is happening, Mr. Laus, who's a foreman in the company, is walking towards the office because he has a few questions. As he comes in just as firing takes place.
Oh, no.
He jumps on one of the armed individuals and manages to disarm him.
So the foreman has a strong arm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
However, as he does so, one of his accomplices shoots him. So one of the
dear.
other dudes shoots him as he takes the gun from one of the gangsters. And he drops dead.
Oh, dear.
The whole story is a miscalculation The armed bandits were planning to attack Mr. Lafitte, cash guy, as he came back with the employees' pay with lots of money.
So even before he hits the kind of like the office, that was...
Yeah, they wanted to ambush him as he came in. So they were waiting outside, and they saw a car come in the courtyard, and they assumed it was him.
Okay.
So as soon as he was getting in, they followed in. But it turns out that it was one of the customers of the factory that was coming in for, I don't know, business or something, who knows. But it had nothing to do with the cash guy.
So mistaken identity.
Yes. So the cash guy wasn't back yet, and there was no money whatsoever in the factory.
Oh, that's so tragic that, two people lost their lives for
it's bad enough
nothing.
when you get shot for $50 or whatever, but they got shot for zero. 2 gangsters are wounded in the operation. One of them by an accomplice.
Friendly fire.
Yeah, exactly. Given that they were the only ones with guns in the office, we can safely call them dumbasses.
Yes.
They leave the office, still shooting at anyone they see, and they see the company owner, Mr. Haribe, and the oldest employee in the company, Monsieur Labattu. They get shot at, but they miss.
Okay.
So they don't get wounded.
So by that point, they must be pumping full of adrenaline.
Yeah.
One of them's wounded, so they're not as accurate as...
well, they weren't really
as they were
accurate
at
to
the
start
beginning.
with, but yes.
Okay.
They're essentially running out, shooting up, and guns running hot and all that.
Yeah.
As they exit the company premises, they collect one of their accomplices who was keeping guard outside.
Right.
Apparently, as the shooting was going on inside, that guy was shooting in the air outside, point break style. According to witnesses. Exactly. Nobody knows why. He just was shooting in the air.
That's so bizarre.
It is kind of bizarre, yes. He was waiting in the side street near Greengrocers that was owned by Mrs. Saint Laurent. She was in her shop as she heard the commotion, and the first thought she had was that the factory was blowing up. So I don't know how a furniture factory can blow up, but I guess they have solvents and chemicals and stuff.
Yeah, I guess so.
It must have happened, because otherwise, why would you think that?
Yeah.
But the noises were coming from over there, and it was the factory, so she thought it was blowing up. But no, it wasn't. She ran outside to collect her kid, who was playing in the street.
Right.
Because that's the 20s.
Yeah. Oh, come on. I was playing in the streets in the 80s.
Yeah, I guess until the mid-80s, the streets weren't paved with pedophiles yet.
No. Or they weren't inside playing their PlayStation.
Yes. And as she was outside, she saw a tall man shooting in the air. So the
guy who was outside.
keeping an eye out, who was shooting in the air. He signaled her to go back inside. And then she saw 3 men come out of the factory shooting. Nearby, there was a doctor's surgery office, Dr. Hervé, and he was at the time escorting Monsieur Bourdier. The latter, hearing the gunshots outside, ran out of the church surgery and attacked the gunman. He was helped at the time by a railway employee and a local forestry employee. The forestry employee, Monsieur Liebo, was shot. But in a totally insane bit of luck, the bullet was stopped by a metal buckle on his suspenders.
Oh, right. His braces.
His braces in English.
I think
in British English. I think.
Yes, that's right. Is the American?
But I think it's suspenders in American
It's
English.
American English is suspenders.
So he had a buckle on it and he stopped the bullet.
Wow.
That's totally unlikely and impossible, but it happened.
Yes. That's kind of like this Bible saved my life.
Yes, exactly. But Mr. Bourdier wasn't that lucky. He was shot and dead.
Oh, dear. I mean, it's so funny. I think if I heard gunfire now, and I do hear gunfire when the hunters are out hunting in the winter, certainly it's not a noise I run to.
But it's 1925. Remember, a lot of these people had been in the war.
True,
which ended only 6 years earlier.
Yes.
So they would have been ex-soldiers.
Yes.
So they wouldn't have been really that worried about gunfires because you would have heard them for about 4 years constantly.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, they got shot. The news of the heist and the killing spread like wildfire around the village. People are outraged.
Yes.
They're furious, and they get even more furious when they see Monsieur Bourdier's body in the street.
Yeah.
Apparently, he left a wife who was undergoing treatment in a hospital. I don't remember what for, and a kid. So people want the murderers punished.
Yeah, want justice.
So they organize a manhunt.
Mm-hmm.
The locals take their rifles. That's
Oh.
rural France, so everybody has at least a hunting rifle.
Of
but
course.
at the time, I suspect lots of army rifles as well.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
my great-grandfather, we discovered in the 80s, had an arsenal in the house from the First World War.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, there were a lot of weapons around at the time.
Mm.
So they start hunting for the gangsters. The police and the gendarmerie joins in eventually, but they're not the first ones to go after the gangsters.
It feels a bit vigilante.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah, they heard about it, they saw dead bodies in the street, and they decided they would find out who that was.
It's all gone a bit Death Wish.
Yeah. So the gangsters took the direction of the nearest train station.
Mm-hmm.
There are witnesses who see the four men climb the embankment towards the tracks.
Right.
One of them seemed injured, and he was helped by the other three. And after they reached the tracks, they split into two groups. Two go towards the Chemin de la Tour in Talence, which is the road, it's not a street really, the road that goes towards the castle. There's a small castle.
Okay.
One hides in the vines in the castle grounds.
Of course, there's vines.
Of course, there's vines. It's Bordeaux.
Mm.
And one disappears. Nobody knows where he went. One of the gangsters finds himself faced with one of the locals with his gun.
Mm-mm.
And he's told to put his hands in the air. Like you don't care.
Like you don't care.
And he chances it and reaches for his gun and gets shot instantly.
Okay.
So the locals were not joking around.
No.
He survives. He just has a hole on his side at that point. Because remember, it was hunting rifles. Most likely it was a hunting rifle, which was probably a shotgun. So
yeah, lots of pellets.
Yeah, so it might not be that lethal at a certain distance. That's my guess. If it was an army rifle, he'd be dead. He'd be dead. It was probably a hunting rifle, that one. He was lucky. So he surrenders because he doesn't want to risk it again.
Yeah. Second bullet might not be quite so non-lethal.
It might be closer to the head. The two other that have been spotted are also arrested very quickly.
Right.
So by 2 p.m., 3 out of the 4 gangsters are arrested. They are called, they're all Spanish names, so we'll tell them kind of Spanish translated into French and into English.
Okay.
So Ramon Recasens, 27, who was a baker in Amillo in Spain.
Right.
Benito de Castro, who was born in 1892. I haven't calculated his age, but that would be 32. Born in Villafranca in Spain, also a baker. It's a gang of bakers.
Right, okay.
And Isidre Casals, or Casals, depends where you read it. One of them was shot with a hunting rifle. The second one lost 4 fingers due to a revolver bullet in the factory.
So that was a friendly fire.
So when he was shot, he lost 4 fingers.
Oh,
that would have been sore.
That must have been nippy.
Yep. And the third one has a bullet in the abdomen. So that's one that was shot some other way. We don't know how this one was shot.
Okay. So one of these guys was the one that was outside shooting into the air.
Yes, because there's only one missing, and they're all wounded.
Yes.
Except the fourth one. The fourth one is said to be Joaquin Raznar Salanas, called the Negro.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Negro from Spanish, which means just the black guy.
Right.
That wasn't racist at all at the time.
No.
But because they were all Spanish, that was his nickname.
Yeah.
He's the only one who's missing, and he's the only one who, as far as we know, wasn't injured. The other 3 were all injured. So they killed several people, they were all injured and got no money.
If I'll tell you what, for a tribute act, they're
not very good.
They're third rate.
No, because the original gang was quite good. They did it for several years before they got caught. Yeah.
Mm.
So the inquiry is very easy. Lots of witnesses, lots of bullets everywhere.
Yes.
And the guys are arrested and wounded. So the trial starts on the 30th of October 1925 at 9 a.m.
Uh-huh.
The tribunal is heaving, of course, because all the locals want to see them being sentenced.
Oh, yes,
there's
they
no
want
doubt
justice,
about their guilt anyway.
And who doesn't love a good murder trial?
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, and it might be still the case, I don't know, it was common at the time for the president of the tribunal to recap the personality of the accused first, and then go over the facts, and then sentence. So the 3 accused all blame the fourth one. Of course, he's the one who's not there. He's the one who escaped. he can't defend himself.
It's always easy to blame somebody who
Oh,
can't.
yeah, that's what you do, yeah, of course. If one is missing, you just charge him and hope that it's not going to turn back.
He's not there to defend himself.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what you do. And we've seen it in lots of cases. When one is missing, he's getting charged as much as possible.
Oh, yes.
Because if he's never found, was it me? The president of the tribunal doesn't let them get away with it. He doesn't accept that explanation. So he wants to dig a bit more into what exactly happened.
A bit deeper, okay.
Yeah. So he starts going over their past. So Requesens has a very long criminal career in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
He's a deserter from the Spanish army. He was sentenced several times for violent acts in Spain. He, according to Spanish authorities, took place into a train robbery as well in Spain, but wasn't caught at the time.
Right.
He's still searched in Barcelona for terrorism, so the list goes on and on and on. De Castro also has a criminal past, but what's funny is that as the president of the tribunal goes over it and lists what he's accused of having done, and for some of it sentenced, he just denies everything that's negative. It's kind of funny. Like, oh, you attacked that place and you killed those people. No, I didn't. That's what the police said, and then you were sentenced in Spain. No, it's not true. So anyway,
that guy should have gone into politics.
Yeah, exactly, Trump way.
Yeah.
And then Casals is the least gangstery of them all.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't have any criminal past, or at least no known criminal past.
Right.
Who knows what really happened? He could have done it under a different name or whatever. Or was never caught. But anyway, he doesn't have any conviction in France. And the only thing that is known about him is that he was kicked out of France 4 years earlier, I think 1921, for violence during a strike near Béziers. Because at the time, the strikes were a bit like in the US. You had the people on strike, and then either the factory owners or somebody would send a bunch of gangsters to start trouble.
Oh, I see.
And that happened here as well. So he was somehow involved in that. I have no idea which side he was on. It wasn't really explained when I read the articles. But anyway, he was kicked out of France for being part of violence because he wasn't a French citizen.
So these were kind of like the Black Legs, kind of like trying to create trouble.
To break strikes and
yes.
But I don't know if he was part of the strikers or on the other side. I have no idea. Okay. Given that they're all anarchists, I suspect he was on the strike side.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure. But anyway, that's all that's known about him. Casals is also the one that speaks the most, and he explains that he had been kicked out of his flat in Paris by his girlfriend, so he was living in Paris earlier.
Right.
Having nowhere to go, he contacted Aznar, who he had met in Barcelona, and I asked him if he had some work for him. Aznar is the missing one.
Yeah.
Aznar told him to come down to Bordeaux and gave him a job on the building site.
Mm-hmm.
There, he met with the other two.
Right.
And they even shared a room or flat together. So that's how the gang started.
Cooked up the...
On the day of the attack of the factory,
yeah,
they met in town. Aznar was in charge, according to all three. And he was the only one who knew what was going to happen. So they're all saying a consistent story, which places Aznar as the head of the group, who's the one who decided what to do, when to do it, and just took the other three with him.
So he was the brains of the operation. He also seems to have the brains to have evaded being captured.
Yes, yeah. The other three say that they just followed orders, essentially, and until they got to the factory, they didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, sure. So totally minimizing their guilt.
Yes.
Yeah,
Of course, that's their side.
Yes.
Aznar's not there to deny or anything. But it really depends. If we assume that the police did their job properly, then we can probably believe it because there's three people saying the same story.
Yes,
It's the 20s, so we don't really know if they did it properly. Were they separated as soon as they were caught, or were they left together? Did they have time to create a story? We don't know.
No.
But if we go along with that, and we assume the police did their job properly, Aznar seems to be the head who decided to organize everything and ordered the other three. They're saying that until they got to the factory and inside the factory, they had no idea what was going on. They were just told to come and follow.
Right.
Casals says that as soon as he got in, he just wanted to get out again. He smelled that it was going to go wrong, so he didn't want to be there. But of course, he couldn't at that point because as soon as he got into a fight.
Yeah, it was all in too deep, and there was no way they could
there was no
reverse
way
it.
out at that point.
I said, if they hadn't gone in so hot.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he got into a fight as soon as he got in, and he got injured, and he says he didn't shoot anyone. He doesn't remember much more than that because he said he wasn't himself at the time.
Was that the one that lost his fingers?
Yes.
Yeah, well, no wonder. He probably was in massive amount of pain.
Probably, yes. Yes. The others tell a similar story. They also charge as now. Recassens was slightly more implicated because he's the one who gave Asna information about the factory, inside information.
Right.
And he got it by applying to two separate jobs. So he went in, I think, 2 weeks earlier and 3 weeks earlier in the factory for interviews for jobs and didn't get jobs. But he could tell how things were working inside, where the offices were and all that.
Yeah.
So he has a little bit more responsibility than the other two.
I have to say, it's not exactly Ocean's 11 level of
no.
organizational skills in terms of the research.
No, they're just idiots who just didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, clearly.
The witnesses are then questioned.
Mm-hmm.
The testimony that has the biggest impact is Mrs. Gimon. She's all dressed in mourning clothes, all black and veils and everything.
Wow.
She's the one who lost her son and nearly lost her husband.
So she's got an injured son, an injured husband and a dead son. Yeah.
Who died in her arms.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So she describes what happens and she stops regularly for a little bit of sobbing.
Oh.
She says that the gangsters entered the office and shot at her and her son.
Right.
Her son was gravely wounded and dying in her arms, he called Mummy, a priest.
God. Well, that's heartbreaking.
Yes.
Oh, God.
So she tells that, and after his death, she went to the next room and she found her husband on the floor in a puddle of blood because she had been shot.
Yeah.
She also says that she saw Mr. Laus fighting with Casals, who on the floor fired his gun.
Uh-huh.
So not so innocent. So when he said he never fired,
he was lying.
He did.
Yeah.
As she tells the story, the newspapers who report on the case say that you could see at the time on the face of the jurors that they would be sentenced to death, and there was no doubt at that point already.
Yeah.
Just because of her story.
Yeah, you should never underestimate the power of a good witness.
Yes, well, especially a mum that had lost his son.
If they perform well on the stand, then
yes,
that's a game over.
Yeah, well, that was totally for them. But at the same time, they couldn't really deny because there were so many witnesses who saw them shoot at people. So
she's telling the facts, but in such a heart-wrenching way.
Yes. Yes.
Poor woman.
Yeah. Roger Gimon's wife also charges Recassens, so the one that went for the interviews. She says that she saw him shoot her husband in the abdomen, and she's certain of it. Monsieur Boucher, the railway employee, is certain that it is de Castro who fired at him and the two other people with him and killed Monsieur Bourdier, the guy who was at the doctor's.
Yes. Who's really regretting not wearing a pair of braces, presumably.
Exactly. Well, the guy who survived because of his braces also confirms that story. So they know who shot at them and who killed that guy. The police informs the tribunal that they found 30 bullets that had been fired.
Wow.
So they unloaded quite a lot of bullets on people.
Well, they must have had to pause at some point as well to reload.
Well, it depends. If you have 10 per gun, there were 4 of them. They could easily have fired less than a magazine each.
True.
So it depends what guns they had. I have no idea. Most likely they had automatic guns.
Yeah, if they were revolvers, they would have had to...
There was a revolver involved, but again, you can have up to 11 bullets on some revolvers. Between 6 and 11. So could still be possible.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell, but
anyway. But still, even if you're reloading or using another gun, there's still kind of like pause to...
Yeah.
Kind of like...
There's still a lot of bullets.
A lot of bullets and a lot of damage.
Yeah.
A lot of death.
Well, given the number of bullets, it's surprising that there were only 2 or 3 people dead.
Yeah.
You would think that with 30 bullets, they would have hit more people. But
thank goodness they didn't.
Yes.
And all that for absolutely nothing. No money, nothing.
Yes. Yeah. So at the end of the trial, the prosecutor says under other circumstances, he can only request 3 death sentences. That's the only thing he can do.
Right, yeah.
The defense.
I don't think the public opinion would have gone very well.
Oh no, they would have been happy with that.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted them dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the defense lawyers tried to play on the harsher bringing of the clients. So they try to make them look like victims, but that doesn't work.
No.
After Mrs. Gimon's testimony,
No.
there was nothing they could say that could save them.
You have a harsh upbringing, you've got time to turn your life around. You don't necessarily. I mean, we all. Yes. I've got a very dark past, but you don't see me wandering around with a gun killing people.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't forced to do it, and they decided to do it. So, yes. So the sentences are 2 death penalty, 1 life of hard labor.
So is that trip to Guyana, is it?
At the time, most likely it would have been yes.
Yeah, because that's pre-shutdown.
Yes, shutdown was 36. So, yeah, chances are yes.
Yeah.
He ended up in Guyana. I didn't check, but yeah. It's Casal who only gets the life sentence, the prison sentence, because his lawyer managed to highlight the fact that he had no criminal past, that he hadn't been accused of anything until that point.
Was he the guy that was standing outside firing into the air?
I don't remember. Yeah, it could be. No, Casal was inside.
Ah, right, okay.
No, he's the one who said he didn't shoot at anyone, and in fact did. So he was inside. It was the other one that was outside. De Castro, I think, was outside.
Okay.
But he still managed to shoot someone in the street.
Someone?
Yes.
So he's not that innocent. Crack on.
Well, they were all... Well, there's no proof that Casals killed anyone, and that's how the lawyer gets
yes.
a reduced sentence.
He may have fired his gun,
yes,
but
he
didn't
did say that
anyone.
he fired.
Okay.
He didn't fire.
Yeah.
It was, according to witnesses, not true. He did fire, but there's no proof he hit anyone. And the lawyers used that, plus the fact that he doesn't have a criminal past, to reduce his sentence to life or hard labor instead of a death sentence. So they appeal, as you do, obviously, but the appeal is rejected by the court. And in January 1926, the defense lawyers appealed to the President of the Republic, who was Gaston Doumergue at the time, for clemency.
Right.
Doumergue was a socialist, and many of the socialists had been in favor of abolition of the death penalty when the bill was in Parliament in 1908. We've talked about that before.
Yeah. And there was a horrific case.
Yes, well, there were 2 or 3 in a row, which we covered in the first episodes, that kind of changed the opinion of the public. At the time, the public was in favor of abolition, and then these cases happened, and that changed.
They were just so horrific.
Yeah. So at that point, the public opinion wasn't really in support of abolition.
No.
Plus, Doumergue wasn't an abolitionist, even though he was a socialist. He was for the death penalty.
That's quite unusual, but yeah.
Well, there are some.
Where?
You don't have to follow the same mold. You
that's
can
very
have your
true.
own opinions.
You can have shades of...
Yeah. So he meets with the lawyers. He spends the whole day with them, listening to what they have to say. And he promises that he will think about it seriously.
Okay.
And take a decision quickly.
Well, it's good that he actually, gave them, a proper airing, to give them an arena to plead their case.
Yeah, I read somewhere that the lawyers on their way back from Paris, because they were lawyers in Bordeaux, on the train, seemed to be fairly happy that it went well, and were hoping that the sentences would be commuted into prison.
Right.
On the 14th of January 1926, early in the morning, the guillotine is built outside the prison.
Okay, I think we can guess which way he went then.
Yep. So the president decided not to commute the sentences. And as it was the case at the time, as soon as there's no more appeals for changing your sentence, you're executed. So I suspect the president gave his decision on the 13th of January, and on the 14th they were executed.
Yeah, that's kind of like last minute reprieve, isn't it? That just doesn't happen.
Yes, it's like waiting for the governor to call.
Exactly,
last minute, essentially it's that, yes.
Yeah, everybody sitting watching the phone as old Sparky's been fired up in the movies. It's such a cliche.
Ring. Yeah. They are in prison at the time at the prison of A, which is on Ile de Ré. That's the last stop before Guyana for prisoners who go to Guyana. Mm-hmm. But they're all in there. Mm-hmm. There was a large police and military presence around the prison in that morning because they're all anarchists, all 4 of them, and they were expecting anarchists to try to break them out at the last minute, but nothing happened. At 5 a.m., the 2 prisoners are woken up. They are informed that their appeal has been rejected, so the president's The prison has rejected their appeal,
Mm-hmm.
and they are prepared for the execution. The 2 prisoners that are going to be executed refuse the traditional drink. Apparently, there's a traditional drink. It's not the last meal; it's the last drink.
Okay. You mean they don't give them a nice, lovely local dish of
No.
beautifully sourced oysters?
Oysters, no, they didn't get that. They accept the last cigarette, however.
Mm.
Then they're led outside, and it's de Castro who's shortened first.
Right.
Apparently, it was traditional when you had multiple executions that the big fish is killed last, because they use the execution of the other ones as some kind of additional torture.
Yeah.
So he has time to see what's going to happen to him.
This is coming your way.
Yeah, you're next.
Yep.
So they do that, as they normally do. De Castro, just before his head is removed, tries to shout, "Long live anarchy," but doesn't have time to finish. He starts, but doesn't finish.
He obviously underestimated the speed of gravity.
I suspect so, yes. He didn't expect the brain to be so fast. So anyway, he didn't have time to finish. Recassens is next. He's the second one to be executed. And the executioner, which we know the name of because he's the executioner in pretty much every story we had.
Yeah, the executioner to the stars.
Yep. Doesn't leave him the time to say anything. It's just as soon as it is in, the blade is down, and that's it. Doesn't have time to say anything. And by 7:30 in the morning, it's all done. The guillotine is packed, and everybody goes back home.
Wow.
And that's the end of the story.
Well, I think the moral of the story is never place a bet against a gang of anarchists having any organisational skill.